Hey, Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View News and Reviews, which is actually going to be changing up soon. Might as well let people know about that now. Yay! So, we're in a big month for nerd movies right now.
Huge. Does it get bigger than this?
No, I don't think so. When you talk about two Marvel, honestly, DC is the only one missing from the party, but they're usually missing from the party anyway.
Even when they show up, they kind of sit in a corner by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they got Wonder Woman, and that's kind of it at this point. But we have Deadpool 2. Obviously, we just came out of Infinity War, and then we've got Solo to wrap the month up. And let's not forget that we've got Westworld and Legion going on right now as well. So we've got some major stuff happening in the nerd world. But when we started this podcast, Ben, we kind of had there was an idea, let's say, to go on with recent trailers.
I'm so proud of you. That was so good.
There was an idea that we were going to do a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah.
Because we are first and foremost
We should
Star
tell
Wars
this
fans.
whole story.
Oh, yeah, we are.
How it all fell apart for us.
Oh, absolutely. And, we had already both been in two podcasts that we had committed very hardcore to. We both put lots of money into these different shows. You had sort of a Christian music and sort of something a little bit more reflective of you as an individual, and I was doing a football podcast with a buddy of ours named David, who's been on the show every now and then, and we had varied success with it, but we also hit a certain wall with it too, and we had to wrap it up for a number of different reasons.
Right.
But we also knew we loved podcasting. There was no doubt about it that the experience of doing it scratched just the right itch for us.
Right. Yeah.
So obviously we could always nerd out. That's never been a problem for us. That's been one of a variety of building blocks of our relationship and our identities too, for that matter.
Yeah.
And Star Wars being one of the first things that connected us and binded us together.
You're just on fire today.
Right? So we decided we were going to do a Star Wars podcast, and we came up with some good topics. And then we went over to AwesomeCon a couple years ago as we were prepping to launch the podcast. And we went to a panel that was called Rampant Speculation in a Galaxy Far, Far Away.
It was hosted by some of the nerds from a Star Wars podcast called Tashi Station.
Right,
Shout
the
out
Tashi
to those
Station
guys.
Network, yeah.
Yeah, huge. Those guys are amazing. They do some great work. They have some great podcasts. And the problem with it was we got there and we were just completely ashamed of our lack of knowledge.
Right. Especially when it comes to the extended universe.
Yes.
And because we are the kind of fans, it's not that we're surface level fans, but we don't necessarily take the deep dives that some other people would normally do. We still
I haven't read every single novel that's come out in the extended universe or comic book, or even have a general understanding of most of those stories.
And even if we did, I don't think we would have sort of the cataloged depth that some people do.
Right.
I think
I don't have that savant ability to recall minutia detail in 17 books that were mentioned,
Because we also have a tendency to pull out, as you've heard on the podcast before, we'll go a little bit more on the mythological, spiritual side of what do you get out of this story and how does it
I'm more
interested.
I'm more interested in how it impacts me personally and other people personally than I am about the details of the actual story that was told.
Right.
But I'm interested in the details in the fact that how do they actually impact the story and what does that mean to me?
Absolutely. And I think to a certain extent also, we're also very much into the creative process. And so I love seeing what were some of the different ideas and the different paths that some of these creators wanted to go to.
Right.
You've heard before on the podcast, I obsess about some of Gary Kurtz's opinions and the statements he's made on where the original trilogy and what the original 7, 8, and 9 would have been like.
Right,
I love the and what exactly
almost the theory crafting of the mythology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was this one guy who stood up and he went on. He had to have gone on for 3 minutes. straight.
Which doesn't sound that long.
But that's 180 seconds. That's a lot of time.
A lot of time to just rant about something that you and I were just like, I have no idea what this guy's talking about.
I know he mentioned the Kaizong Vong. I know he mentioned them.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember out of that. All I remember is I was lost, and I slowly turned to you. You were right next to me, and I said, I don't know if we can do a Star Wars podcast anymore.
And the fact, I was like, I don't think we can. I don't think we qualify. I don't think we, like, everybody else in this room seems far more qualified to do a Star Wars podcast than you and I at this point in time.
Right.
Like, I don't even know where to begin to catch up to these people. Like let's just branch it out into basic nerd culture.
Right, because we can go on about Marvel and DC and, Lord of the Rings or whatever else comes our way. Voltron, just keep it a little bit more general and pivot to all of that.
Because we love all that stuff. Like, we like that. That's all. Like, I think part of the problem with us doing a quote-unquote Star Wars podcast is that we love Star Wars. It's my first nerd love, but it's not my only love. Like, I am not in a monogamous relationship with Star Wars.
Although if I had to decide which one to go with, I would.
Yeah, if Star Wars was like, if you want to continue to be my fan, you got to put a ring on it.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, but as long as we're allowed.
Yeah, so we are now deciding, and it's been a couple years now.
I can't believe it's been like 2 or 3 years that we've been doing this thing.
Right? And so now we've come to the point where we're trying to really make sure like we can take this show to the next level. And I think one of the things we've decided as we're looking at it and as what we're doing well and what we're enjoying, what we can really bring out of it, and what we can also do to sort of contribute on a more meaningful level,
right?
Rather than just add to the noise that's out there,
right?
I think
because there's a million shows where you can get nerd news from, and
Absolutely.
Frankly, they're better. They're doing much better than we do.
Yeah, and for those of you who do appreciate you do somehow find us as a resource for that, thank you for that. We really appreciate that.
And that stuff's not going completely away.
Yeah, we'll still talk about the things that we like if it's compelling enough, and potentially in bonus episodes.
Right.
But week to week, we are going to be moving to being a Star Wars only podcast. So we're gonna go a little deeper into some of those Star Wars stories, whether it's a news story or whether it's a concept that we're going to make a deep dive on, or a book. Yeah, a book, or maybe a creator in the Star Wars universe and their body of work.
Start doing some interviews with people in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and other podcasts as well. So and podcasts from around the nerd community for people who are interested in Star Wars and want to comment on certain things. I'd like to kind of we could talk about some of the specifics of that as we get closer to that. But yeah, we're gonna certain point of view is a Star Wars title.
Right, and here's what's great. Like we've started to build out a network. Like, it's not just you and me.
Right. We got fun and games.
We have fun and games with Matt and Jeff. We got another pass with Case Aiken. Like, there's other places, and we're starting to build out that all those unique niches where everybody can have a voice, and so there's a little something for everyone. Like, I'm talking to somebody right now who may do some blogging for us. So there's like a really good, strong nerd blogging voice that's going to be hopefully popping up on a certain point of view as well. So like you'll be able to get a lot of news and show reviews and movie reviews from that person and their perspective on nerddom. And I think it'll be really interesting. She's just finishing up her degree out in California, and then she's going to have a little extra free time when she's not studying and getting a job and stuff. So she'll be hopefully available for us to do that. And then so we're always open to looking at, and I think you and I are both really into finding new talent and finding other voices who want to have a podcast that work with them and teach them and help them create and give them a place to do that fits within the brand and fits our ever increasing quality control. Yes. I'm still blown away by these headsets. And build off of that and build that. So like maybe there will be in another couple months a new show that is like a general nerd news type of show if we find the right person who's interested in that and can do
or
that.
If we find the time to do it.
Or if we find the time to do it, which is highly unlikely.
Yes, not in the near future.
Right. So I'm excited about. I'm really excited about really focusing this show to Star Wars and everything that is Star Wars. I think it's gonna open up a lot of conversations for us that we started to have a lot of those types of conversations in the beginning, and then we kind of wandered off a little bit, and when we got focused by all these other things. It's hard to go deep when you're focusing on a lot of things. You have to go wide. You can't go deep. So now that we're just focusing on one thing, I think we're able to have a little deeper conversations, a little more important conversations that are actually going to have hopefully some impact on people, or show like the impact that it's had on us as people and as fans. And hopefully that will be like the highlight of what this is. And I think that's what's cool about Another Pass, is like going deep on that topic and seeing different people's perspectives of that movie and what that movie meant to them, or how it could,
or reinterpreting
like, oh, I never really realized that about that movie or whatever. And I think Case does a great job of bringing that out and highlighting that with different guests. And Matt and Jeff and what they're doing with Fun and Games, like that's an area of nerddom that I'm just not qualified to really talk a lot about. Like, I can talk about WoW all day long,
and that's about it.
And that's about it. Yeah,
which is also why we're on Twitch right now, streaming with our guild, the Nagas with Attitude, and then of course Ben, you're doing some streaming even outside of that.
I'm doing a lot of SWTOR streaming now regularly. So, we're finding other avenues for our nerddom, but it's cool just to see everybody's like different niche and how they're representing that and how they're taking a deep dive on it themselves. So we're just kind of joining back into the pool of what other people are doing and trying to be successful at that.
And of course, you can check out all of that on our website at certainpov.com. All of our podcasts there, Twitch, everything is there. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iTunes. Everything, again, certainpov.com. All right, let's get started with the news, and then I've got some rants as well. We're going to talk about the Venom trailer, and we're going to do our little roundup of some of the TV that's happened recently, and we'll get right to that. So we've got only one major news story, and it turns out that it was revealed recently that Alden Ehrenreich, who is playing Han Solo in the upcoming Solo: A Star Wars Story, he's confirmed that he actually signed a 3-picture deal with Lucasfilm. So here's the thing. What does that mean?
Not much.
Right.
In my opinion, I don't think it means much. Like, what's the name of the actress from Rogue One?
Felicity Jones.
Felicity Jones.
Yeah.
Felicity Jones signed a 2-picture deal.
Right. And she's dead.
Her character's dead. Like, it's not like they were like, well, I mean, maybe we'll let Rogue. No, everybody died in that movie. And we all knew everybody was dying in that movie. And they still signed her to a 2-picture deal.
Well, I think it's with the understanding, similar to how Disney has done this with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like this is a little bit closer to like Sebastian Stan or someone like that, or Anthony Mackie or Don Cheadle's deals. Like, these guys are, secondary characters, but have the potential to show up in other people's movies. Right. So they sign them to these deals so they get ahead of it. Yeah, because you know that they're going to be crossovers. This is part of building a universe, and they already had experience with this with Marvel, so I think this is a carryover from Marvel over to another member.
This is just good lawyering.
Yeah,
is what this is. It's like, let's lock them in at this price.
Absolutely.
Because let's just say Solo is a massive, massive hit. God willing, it's the greatest Star Wars movie we've ever seen and didn't know we wanted. Right. And they go, okay, like, people love this and they want more. Let's do another one.
Right.
Well, you've already got him locked in for 2 more movies, so you could do a trilogy of Solo movies if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to.
Right. So let's go a little bit more down that road, like a trilogy of Solo movies. What does that look like to you? What do you think?
I'm not sure. It's hard because I'm not exactly sure what I'm getting in this one. Know what I mean?
Right. So just sort of like, let's imagine we do know. So like, from my thought process is, because we're seeing a little bit more of a hopeful, a little bit more, a lot, like, not the cynical.
Looks far more swashbuckling.
Yes, but he doesn't seem like he's the cynical Han Solo we see in A New Hope.
Right.
Like, he even says, I have a good feeling about this.
Yes.
Which was like, oh, that's like the quick, like, indication to me, like, okay, this is how we're going to find out why Han is cynical, why he's a little bit more out for himself, maybe why he's not even crazy about rescuing a princess, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yes.
So,
like you even have Woody Harrelson's line about, not trusting anybody.
Anybody, yeah.
So,
And once you're in this life, you're in it forever.
Exactly.
Kind of a thing. Yeah, I mean, like, it's clearly, like, his first steps into the world of smuggling.
Right, into the underworld.
Yeah, which is going to, like, scar you. Like, it's not... Good people generally don't get involved in smuggling.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we're going to get that. And, I mean... We're obviously going to see how he gets the Millennium Falcon from Lando.
Right. How Han and Chewie meet.
How Han and Chewie become friends.
We get a little bit of the backstory with him and Lando.
Yeah. So we're getting so we're getting a lot of beats from like all of like the major questions that you've always wondered about Han Solo.
Yeah.
There's a story, and I guess it's in the extended universe or it's in the comics. I don't know where it originated from. Of one of our favorite group of people is the bounty hunters, right?
Yeah.
So you have Dengar.
Yeah.
Who the reason that he's got the head bandage and the head wound and all that stuff and lost his brain and all that things is because of Han Solo.
Right.
Like Han Solo, they were racing and he purposely hit Dengar's ship and he crashed and that's what caused the brain injury, which is why he's the mess that he is. I would like to see that story.
Yeah.
That's one of the stories that I'd like to see. Yeah.
Well, so I like it. I think that would be cool. I don't know if I
want to see more Han Solo and the bounty hunters.
Right. And I have sort of a similar idea where I don't necessarily want a Han Solo trilogy, but a trilogy, a Scum and Villainy trilogy.
Oh, very good.
So Han Solo being one of the movies, Bounty Hunters being another
where you could see that part, and then you have Han in that.
Right, you have Dengar, you have, but rather than being up front and center, he can be not necessarily cameo appearance, but
he's in the race, right?
Exactly. So you can have all of that. You get Dengar, IG-88, Bosk, and Boba, and
like having Bosk
Zuckuss.
and Chewie, like having their backstory explained and talked about. I think
I'd be all about
would be
that.
very cool.
And then I'd want the second or third movies to be a Lando movie.
A straight up Lando movie.
Yeah,
how he gets Bespin.
Yeah. Or I mean, I don't even need that much of a handoff, but something.
I would like to know how he got Bespin.
Yeah.
How he ends up in Bespin.
Like how he reforms to be a little bit more.
How he turns into a regular, more respectable guy.
Right.
Yeah, because he doesn't seem to be in this movie. But that would be a great trilogy.
Yeah.
And you could have Han in every single one of those.
Exactly. And you could even have Felicity Jones show up in one of those, too.
If you had to.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not entirely unlikely for them to cross paths, too, for her being sort of the terrorist that she is as well.
I suppose, you could have her in, especially the second one that you described.
Yeah.
That could work.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a stretch, but you could make. I mean, it's Star Wars. I mean, people are crossing each other.
I mean, we constantly see.
They're like, cross paths. It's a huge galaxy, but everybody ends up at the same places all the damn time.
Right. So I think there's some
that would be cool.
There.
I would like to see that. That's a great idea. The Scum and Villainy trilogy, would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more of a loose anthology trilogy rather than that straight up like saga style, episodic, type of thing. So,
yeah, I'd be down for that. I think I like that idea. I cannot come up with anything that is close to a better idea than that. Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, to use Alden Ehrenreich or whatever his stupid name is. That's the best way you can use him. If you're going to use him, that's the best way you can use him.
Absolutely. I will say the thing that still mystifies me about this movie, though, is one of the things I read recently was one of the influences or one of the ideas that Lucasfilm went into with this movie was the Big Lebowski is sort of the idea that they were going for with the Solo movie.
Right.
So, yeah, that's like...
It does have like that kind of like fun... quirky feel to the trailer.
It does. So it'll be I'm very like that makes me very intrigued.
Like if Chewie's pissed because somebody peed on his rug,
or
just drinking White Russians the whole time. Chewie's drinking White Russians would be the greatest thing ever.
Don't fuck with the boba.
That'll be amazing. I will. I can't believe I'm saying this, but of the 3 big release movies that we have this month, you've got Infinity War, which we just saw and is ridiculous.
Beyond what I ever thought. No spoilers, because of course Thanos demands our silence.
For now.
Yeah.
We'll probably do that next week.
Yeah.
And then you have Deadpool 2, which looks crazy funny. And then I'm most excited about Solo.
Yeah.
Like when I think about it, I'm like I'm most anticipating Solo.
Yeah. I get most excited about whichever one I'm thinking about at that moment. I can't honestly
Such
say.
a golden retriever.
I know, right? I'm just like all over the place. Oh my god.
Oh, I love Marvel. Oh, yeah. I love Deadpool.
May is going to be my least productive month.
Yeah.
This May of 2018 is the least productive month in the history of my life.
It doesn't get any better than this.
And we got some cool trailers too ahead of Infinity War as well.
I can't remember any of them.
There was Incredibles 2.
Oh yeah.
It was your other movie that you want to go see, Uncle Drew.
Oh. Yeah, we got Uncle Drew. That's
Uncle
right.
Drew
I
looks
only
amazing.
want to see that with J Mike though.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in seeing that by myself. I only want J Mike to be there with us.
It's got to be with J. Mike, or I have no interest in seeing that movie. I just want to see his reaction. I almost want to sit backwards so I can just watch it.
Yeah, really, that's all I want to see.
See me crying.
I still need to watch the first Fantastic Beasts, but the new one still looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen the first one?
No, I still need
It's
to watch
cool.
it. Yeah,
That's very
Was it
cool.
good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't great.
I'm not a big Potter fan. So.
I know J Mike just magically appeared on the podcast, but it's not like we just
how he
had someone
does.
play with the time
Theater
stone.
of the mind.
So welcome, J Mike.
Oh, hi guys.
But the other one, so the first couple trailers for this one look really bad, and it doesn't look great to begin with. But I'm a little bit more interested in the new Jurassic World.
Shut the fuck up.
I can't say Raptor Bros anymore because it's just one of them.
It's just blue.
It's just blue.
Yeah, but
No, my son is obsessed with Jurassic World, yo.
Yeah?
There's a Lego version of this movie.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And he watches it, and he is all about it.
Has he actually watched Jurassic World?
No.
Oh, I was like, what?
He's only 9.
I know.
I was like, no, you cannot watch. He said, no, I can watch it. No, you cannot
Would
watch
you
it.
Never
would you
sleep
show him
again.
the original?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. He's got to
Yeah, I
be. He's
guess
got to
you're
be a
right.
little more mature.
Yeah, that's
It's funny
fair.
because his therapist said the same thing. They're like, well, has he watched the first? I was like, no, not yet. He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I think about
You gotta,
it,
yeah, because there are some moments.
It's
yeah.
pretty frightening. He's
Yeah.
he's really immature.
Yeah.
He's just not ready for that
You're
yet.
right. Yeah, that'd be fun to watch with him though. Eventually, yes, yeah.
for sure. Yeah, we'll sit down and just start going through all of those awful movies.
At least you guys can watch Star Wars together. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Or at least most of it. You guys didn't? Did you guys get into Revenge of the Sith or?
we didn't get that far. I think we only got through Jedi,
Yeah.
and then we were gonna go back and do
Right.
the
Well, because I know at the very least,
but he was just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how everyone feels about the prequels, though.
Well, no. Well, I mean, sometimes kids do enjoy Episode 1 and
Really?
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones. Oh yeah, totally.
yeah. There's a lot of people out there that really, really dig those movies.
Yeah, because that's their introduction to Star Wars,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
That's
That's fine. But then the Hayden Christensen burning, that is a scene that
It's
is
a
a little
little dark.
rough. Yeah,
Just a little dark.
killing kids.
I have
You
the
know.
high ground.
Yeah, that you do need to wait a little
Kia
bit
D.
more for
Mundi
that.
and all his nonsense.
Yeah, if you've not been checking out the Key Addy Mundi memes that have been posted from the Certain Point of View account, you are really missing something.
I've got some special ones coming up.
I'm excited to
God.
see them. Well, we're gonna get into the Venom trailer in just a moment, but I got a little bit of a rant.
Uh-oh. Here
to
we go.
on
God.
to. So
I'm glad you're here, J. Mike.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, posted about a movie that's coming up called Crazy Rich Asians, which, I mean, I was, sort of, on the surface, sort of interested in this movie.
I've heard this movie mentioned, and
Yeah.
all I know about it is that it's, all Asian cast,
Yeah.
all Asian, an Asian director, and behind the scenes. It's
Right,
all
and it is a
Asians.
Hollywood movie. It's not
Oh, okay,
it's not out of the East or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, that
Surprise.
makes sense. But Constance Wu from Fresh Off the Boat, the mom from Fresh Off the Boat, is in it. Who's hilarious, and sort of the idea of this movie. So it's a romantic comedy, and the idea of it is she's sort of I don't know if she's first generation Asian American, but she's Asian American, and her husband is basically from China and super wealthy, and that guy's mom is very judgmental of her being Asian American. So it gets into some of the nuance of that first generation immigrant, versus like the the people who are
Naturalized
still living.
citizens,
Yeah, well, still the people who are still living back at at the homeland in sort of a way. So like, and because that's like for people who are in that situation, that is an interesting cultural dynamic. So, this isn't like a revolutionary movie necessarily, but it is opening up a certain world that doesn't necessarily get exposed as often, and it's sort of just an interesting niche to kind of explore. So, like for me, like I'm like, okay, like that does have a certain appeal to me already. So, our friend decides to post this. And it's like, and just the whole by virtue of it being an all Asian cast, and I guess it's the first movie for like apparently like 25 years, or I guess Joy Luck Club was the last like all Asian cast or something. Yeah, which whatever.
I'm not surprised by that.
I'm like I that's not the reason I'm interested, or I'm not hyped, but I'm not like that's not what excites me about this movie. It's the subject of the movie. But he decided to go on Facebook and post like, "Hey guys, the way we came out for Black Panther, let's rally our support for this." And immediately he gets
hate.
Yeah, just straight hate from other African American friends, because again, that's who he was talking to specifically, because because of the people who rallied for Black Panther, and with I totally get that's what has helped keep this movie still going in theaters right now. It is still active. Like there are 2 MCU movies that are overlapping right now since February. Like that's crazy. It's incredible. But and it's because it's a really cool movie. And
the culture has rallied around it, and not just Black culture. Like to be fair, like
a lot of people,
everybody
it would not be making the money it is making worldwide without support outside of the Black community as well.
Exactly.
Like that, which is very key to me when that response was as negative as it was, because there was a number of different sentiments that were a little bit more focused on you each got to take care of your own, we're suffering, and you've got to take care
interesting.
So it was
so there were people saying that the Asians need to come out and represent their movie. We already came out and represented the Black movie,
right? And to me, like, I couldn't feel anything but hurt when I saw that.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just like, honestly, I actually teared up a little bit as I got into some of the comments, because I was just like, I felt I at least empathized with the plight for Black Panther as well. And while I'm not necessarily the number one fan of identity politics, I do see a point in representation to at least some extent,
for sure.
And it was interesting because there were even a couple other people that were just, they didn't necessarily get into big arguments about it, but they were like, I'm surprised that other people wouldn't want to rally around this. So and there were a number of reasons. Some people said, okay, like obviously Black Panther, it's a different situation because superhero movie, there's already another hype around it, the empowerment message and all that kind of stuff. And I totally get that. Like I'm not expecting Black Panther level hype for this movie. And I don't necessarily even want that. But the sentiment that we're all out on our own is
that's not the way to go.
That is the exact
It's the exact opposite message of what Black Panther put out there.
Yeah. and not just Black Panther put out there, but the whole idea of helping with representation. We
all should be looking out for each other, so that
we're
all
and understanding each other,
right.
so that we can see from other people's perspectives. The whole idea is to get into other people's shoes. So I don't want to rant just about that, but I took
that's interesting because
that's what hurt.
Yeah,
is that like fine? You're not interested in this movie, but
we aren't supportive of each other.
Yeah,
that's the most hurtful part.
Yeah, that's where it all falls apart, right? Like that's where identity politics falls apart. Like when it starts becoming a one-upsmanship game of who has it the worst, right?
Right.
Instead of like, oh no, let's all raise it. Let's all just get there together.
Yeah.
It becomes an issue of like, oh no, this group is more downtrodden than this group, and
right.
it just keeps getting incrementally smaller and smaller and smaller until you're like, I have it the worst.
Yeah,
I'm the guy who has it the worst.
Yeah, and I saw comments on this thread that we all suffer alone, so you have to fight on your own. And the whole point,
what is that?
Right, the whole point of this is bringing people together, so you don't have to suffer and fight alone.
Yeah,
that's like there's a lot of bitterness.
Yeah, when I see that online though, I feel so bad for those people.
Yeah.
People who think that way,
yeah.
I feel horrible for it, and I don't understand it. Like I'm coming from a place of privilege, right? Of like a middle-aged white guy, grew up in suburbia. Mm. I just don't understand that thought process.
Yeah.
And I've tried to engage with people on that, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and because there is so much hurt, and I could go in a million different directions from here, but it was what I wanted to there's like I see this a lot because I see this even in my own in the Indian community where there are people who I know people in the Indian community who do not like African Americans at all, and I know a friend who dated an Indian girl, a black friend who dated an Indian girl, and their family hated him.
I know a couple Africans who absolutely hate African Americans.
Right. They're
the worst.
Right, you have all these divisions with each other, and the same thing with sometimes with maybe Oriental Asians feeling one way towards different all these different cultures. So there is division here. So and some people even spoke on that. So why should we go and help them? Which is funny because I've seen hate directed towards me from the black community at different times, or from black people, not the community. But we have a tendency to suddenly represent these communities with a couple interactions here and there. And I talked to my friend who posted it, and he was just so discouraged. Because he's also been getting a lot of this is a friend of ours who's very liberal, who's very loving with everyone, who puts his heart out into everything that he does.
He's great.
I
love that guy.
And he just felt so downtrodden. He just felt I really he sincerely said this, but I really felt like we had the chance to be the greatest generation. We had the chance to really step up in a big way, but he sees this and it's being squandered. And it made me realize, what, that discouragement is the wrong thing to take away from this. It had the reverse effect and made me feel a little bit more optimistic, because here's the thing. We see people talking about millennials or Gen Z and Tide Pods and shitting on all of the upcoming generations, because that's the natural progress of every generation.
Yeah, my generation, hairspray out to here, listening to hair metal and huffing paint.
And let's be honest, not everybody in the greatest generation was great. We know there were some definite douchebags.
Super douchebags. They've been running our country into the ground for the last 40 years.
Right. And so I think the what I told him is what, I think we forget. We the perspective that we need to have is that we as individuals need to step up and be great.
Yeah.
And there's an importance in knowing when to maybe step away from some of those discussions, or knowing when to step in and give perspective. Talking about I know it's a weird thing to tie back into us going to being a Star Wars only podcast very soon, but we were talking a lot about sort of being meaningful with what we're talking about. And I think us sharing vision and perspective, that it's the idea of certain point of view, is important. David, our friend who David who posted this is a person who is super empathetic with people, and I think my personality is not quite where he is, but is somewhere in that closer to
you
that
lean
range.
Towards that, yeah.
Where and which sometimes is very can be very emotionally exhausting, being around sometimes certain people.
Yeah.
Because you feel sometimes other people's emotions a little bit more than just necessarily hearing it. I think that's why I definitely cry in movies. We were rewatching Guardians 2 before going into Infinity War.
I was weeping like a bitch.
Oh my god! And this is the 6th time I've seen this movie.
Oh my gosh, guys.
I'm so bad. I'm bad. As I get older and I have kids, like it's gotten so much worse, guys.
I was hiding it, like Case sitting there on the couch. I'm just like, oh
my god. Like I know Addy's crying.
I was so happy when a joke popped up. I was just like, I need that joke.
I need this. I need it. I need that punchline.
But that's why I think us listening to each other and listening to these stories and watching these stories with an open mind is so important. That when we're watching a movie and needing to, instead of getting into this fanboy argument of nitpicking whether bombs have gravity in space, or or even maybe some of the stuff we've harped on with a Batman versus Superman,
right,
or Justice League. I wanna come back to looking at someone's intent and who they are when they're trying to communicate some message out.
What are they trying to communicate? What was their point of view? What was the story and the lesson they were trying to teach?
Exactly, because I think that if we start looking at that and interpreting these stories from there, the quality is going to range no matter what. I'm not going to pretend Justice League or Batman versus Superman are good movies.
No, they're not.
But I do want to start looking at what are they trying to tell me,
right?
And whether
what's the good
in
it? What's the good in it? Well, what can we learn from it?
Absolutely. So
I agree with you. It's funny because I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who's on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. He's very right wing, super conservative guy. I love him. I don't hold his political views, just like I don't hold all of the other guys' political views.
Right.
And I don't think. That's the funny thing about the political views thing is like I don't know anybody who holds the exact same political views
I think
as me.
we're the closest.
We're closest, and we definitely don't agree.
No, that's for sure.
So like it's crazy to be like, oh, this is the right point of view is insane.
Yeah.
That people think that they can just talk you into something it's a different point of view. But I was talking to him and I was telling him kind of the same thing of like. You gotta let go, because he was complaining about how he wasn't enjoying nerd culture anymore, and that it had become so political to him, and it was so divisive now, and there was so much vitriol in people's posts and stuff like that. And I was like, here's what I found. I found that as soon as I stopped shit posting, and as soon as I stopped, looking at politics, and I stopped looking for all of that kind of stuff of like, what do I agree with and how can I argue a point against these people and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I removed that all from my social media life, as soon as I turned Twitter off, like I became far happier with nerd culture. Like it doesn't bother me nearly as much as it was, because he was like, well, there's all these political messages, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, dude, I don't even see that. I don't get that. Like he was like, is Black Panther really a good movie, or is it just a bunch of political rant? And I was like, no, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Period.
And sure, there's politics.
Does it have a political point? Yeah, absolutely. It has a political point of view. But is that so offensive to you that you're going to miss a good movie?
Well,
then that's a problem, man. Then you're spending too much time worrying about this shit and thinking about this shit. And the thing is, to go on a little rant of my own.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, we're not prepared as people to have access to social media. Like, social media is a broadcasting tool for all intents and purposes. It gives you the same power as like an NBC, a CBS. You have the same voice as everybody. Like, it's democratized all that for you. But that doesn't mean that everybody is prepared to have that responsibility, have that thought process, and have that ability to speak intelligently or thoughtfully on any given subject. You can just spew anything out you want. There is no editorial process for most people, right? And I've been caught in that. I've been super, especially early in social media. I would just say whatever, type whatever was going through my mind, and it didn't really matter. Like, I didn't really think about it. And as I look back on it now, I'm like, Jesus, I really wish I hadn't typed a lot of that stuff. I burned a lot of friendships. I made a lot of people angry. I think I gave people the wrong impression about me and my views and my beliefs. And I see a lot of people making that same mistake now, especially in nerd culture. Like, I see a lot of people just shit posting stuff and just to get a reaction out of people, and it's not helpful. Like,
right.
I was Sean, like, took exception to us talking about Star Wars and Star Wars fandom right now of like just how toxic it is, and the people who don't like The Last Jedi and how toxic they are, right? And he's wisely like shut himself off of large bits of social media. So he questioned me. I was like, dude, you got to understand. I've been in 3 Star Wars Facebook groups that don't exist anymore. Yeah. Because the fandom is so toxic about this topic that they just shut the group down.
I do want to call out Sean for something, because he is someone who disagrees with us on The Last Jedi. And
he doesn't like the movie.
Awakens.
Yeah, he doesn't like those movies, but he's super intelligent about it.
And he is not in that toxic
not at
culture
all.
by any means.
No, not in the least.
Yeah, because I was recently on Twitter, and I saw Freddie Prinze Jr. being the voice of Kanan. He's also a super Star Wars fanboy
and an MMA guy.
Yeah. So but he's like, if you are associated with Star Wars, you get like
you get shit on so bad.
And I saw a couple threads of these guys like just taking him on for The Last Jedi, or for the Disneyfication of Star Wars, and that they're
feminizing the Force and all this stuff.
And all of those things. They're feminizing the Force. They're bringing gender politics into That's what Admiral Holdo is apparently, and Leia, and that's why Luke isn't an amazing guy anymore, because
they want to highlight women and stuff. And I think there's an element of truth to that. I think
to some extent.
I think that like in Hollywood, like that is a story that they're working through, that Hollywood is working through, and empowering women. And so it spills over into the work,
which is also funny, because you also see, just to comment on that for a moment, you see these, the alt-right fanboys commenting on that, but then you also see the left talking about like, hey, Lucasfilm, you need to hire a female director.
You're not doing enough for women,
which is like I mean. I'm not in the habit of feeling bad for corporations, but I feel a little bit bad for Lucasfilm right now.
I feel bad for everybody right now in media. Like, I feel bad for us. And like, I'm thankful in a lot of ways that we're not bigger than we are and don't have to deal with a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
You know, because like, there's going to be a day that comes along where we're going to be like, how comes you don't have a female voice on a certain point of view?
Yeah.
How comes you don't have a gay voice or a transgender voice on a certain point of view? Like, that's a view that needs to be told and stuff. And it's like, well, I'm not gay, I'm not a chick, like Addy and I are friends, and J Mike's our friend, like it's just like that's how this started,
right?
But it's gonna come, like that eventually is gonna come to
I know
us.
I've thought about that before too.
How do you deal with that? Like, what do you say? Like, does that mean that we have to go
search out for somebody,
get somebody that we're not really friends with and add them to the show just for identity politics sake? Just to appease Twitter. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but it's gonna eventually happen. Like, we're gonna have to deal with it eventually, I'm sure. It's something that we as a culture are having to work out and try to figure out. And it's ugly right now. Because you have both sides so angry and so divided right now. And it's so new. Like, again, I don't think we know how to deal with it. Like, there is no roadmap of like, how do you deal with being able to say whatever you want and have it broadcast globally, and anybody can pick it up and treat it with the same value as anybody else. Like, that's never happened in history before. And I think we're trying to figure that out, and we're trying to work through all those issues. And it's not going particularly well, but I'm an optimist at heart. And I think eventually over the next, it may be our lifetime, it may be 2 lifetimes, but I think we'll figure it out. And kind of get used to it and learn how to deal with having this much information and having this much of a voice to be able to deal with it. And I think it's going to eventually be for the good of humanity. Because I think what it's doing is it is giving a voice to people who did not have a voice before. I mean, I'm certainly aware of a lot more of what's happening in society than I was 10, 15, 20 years ago, for sure. You know, and I think that's a good thing. It makes me uncomfortable sometimes, and I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
Well, and I think we've talked about this before, where and I've suggested that, since history has always been written by the winners,
right?
Now that people's voices are being democratized, we're finally hearing the losers'
perspective.
viewpoints. Yeah.
Right.
So that's now challenging the identity of everything and the truth of everything we have learned at this point, because that does.
And it's all very confusing.
Exactly.
It's all very, very confusing. It's very difficult sometimes to tease out what is truth.
Right.
And so at some point, I think at some point you just have to go, okay, well, this is where I'm going to draw the line. Like I've researched it a little. This is as far as I can go, and this is where I'm going to draw the line. And if enough overwhelming evidence comes, fine, I'm willing to move that line. But this is where I have to draw my line for now, because
and we can't get so bogged down, and you also can't get so bogged down in that you aren't a person who doesn't act on that either. Because if we're just stuck in these discussions, then we never act and we never serve other people as well.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. That is like, it's so easy to fall into the social media trap, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be a keyboard warrior.
Right.
And feel like I'm real, I'm engaging and I'm fighting on Twitter at 140 characters at a time, and I'm really making a change. You're not doing shit.
Yeah.
You're not doing shit. I mean, that was always my critique of like Christian culture, with like, we're going to get, for a price of a cup of coffee a month, you can, adopt a kid in Africa.
Which has its value.
It has its value, but it's not the same thing as getting your hands dirty.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not the same thing. I'm sorry. It's not the same thing. Typing on Twitter, being a Twitter warrior or a social media warrior is not the same thing as sitting down with somebody who's different than you over a cup of coffee and talking and building a relationship and a friendship.
Right.
And common ground. That's going to make a hell of a lot more of a change than anything we're going to do on social media.
And where I'd like to wrap this up is in a little bit more of a positive thing, because, and this isn't meant to, it's weird. It's going to be a little weird of a transition.
Okay.
But I will say, I do want to highlight something that you've been doing. And as someone who has adopted your foster kids, you've recently also been active with the Extra Life Foundation.
Yeah.
And been Twitch streaming.
Yep.
And I recently saw you got like a $300 donation, like from a stranger. Was it?
Wasn't a stranger. It was somebody I know.
Okay.
I have gotten.
It was
some
anonymous,
donations.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, the $300 donation was from our friend Quinn.
Oh, was that from Quinn? Okay.
Yeah,
That's
huge
amazing.
shout out to Quinn. Big,
Thank you, Quinn.
big thank you. Thank you so much for that. That was huge.
So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Extra Life is a great charity program that raises money for children's hospitals, right? And my kids came to me through Children's Hospital. Basically, they were taken away from their parents because of injuries that they sustained from their own from their birth parents. My son was shaken severely, had massive brain damage. They flew him to Children's Hospital here in D.C., and the neurologist told us that when they got him off the helicopter, they looked at him and they looked at the damage that was done to his body and brain, and they didn't expect him to live. But they put a stent in his brain, drained the blood. He had massive swelling in the brain. He had broken leg, broken arm, broken ribs. Basically, the whole left side of his body was damaged from his injury. He lived, and they said, well, if he is going to live, we don't expect him to be able to walk or talk. And I'll never forget, Jenny took him to a follow-up visit with a neurologist maybe a year later or something like that. And she was carrying him because he does not like to walk. Like, it is difficult for him to walk, especially when he was super young. Like, his body gets tired quickly as a result of the damage. Because basically he had a stroke for all intents and purposes. Like, the whole left side of his body was paralyzed. So he has a hard time with it. So she was carrying him, and the doctor saw him and was like, oh, okay, well, can he walk? And Janine was like, yeah, he can definitely. Like, he walks all the time. Like, we go on walks every day. And he was like, oh, my God, that's amazing. And she's like, can he talk? And she's like, yeah, he won't shut up. Like, once you get him going, like, he'll talk forever. And he's like, that's amazing. He's like, I never expected him to be able to have that kind of recovery. So, like, when you look at the brain damage that he had, he should not have had that. And I am super grateful to the doctors and all of the different teams there that saved that boy's life. He wouldn't be the son that I have today without Children's Hospital doing that. And then the same thing with Melanie. Like, Melanie had different issues. She had internal bleeding, and she was in Children's Hospital for over 30 days while they were trying to repair that. And she was on a feeding tube that whole time, stuff like that. So both of my kids there's well over 40 days that my kids spent just in the hospital alone. And that's not counting the endless times that we've gone back there for therapies. And it's cost us nothing. And both of our kids have been able to do that. And Children's Hospital just foots the bill for it. And Medicaid foots the bill for it. And I'm super grateful, because it would be millions and millions of dollars of care that my two kids alone would have eaten up. So for me to be able to raise money for those hospitals is a huge, huge deal to me. Like, Jenny and I don't have like an extravagant lifestyle. So to be able to do that and have people donate to it really, really means a lot. And that's why I'm doing the Extra Life thing through Twitch. And I'm excited about it. Like, I had a goal of $400, because I was like, well, $10 for every hour they were in there. Like, it sounded good in my head. And I mean, we just blew past that in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm having to like reconsider, like, okay, I have to reset the goal, because because the event is not until November 3rd.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to rethink about it and reset the goal. But I'm super excited about it, and I'm super hopeful about it, and I'm super proud to be able to do it. And tying it back in to what you're talking about, like, it is something that I can do. It's something that I can be part of and actually get my hands dirty in. And that to me means the most, like, to be able to help those kids and make a difference in somebody's life, to me is the most important thing that I can do.
Yeah, and you can check out that if you go to our website, also certainpov.com. You can check out our adventures on Twitch. Ben is specifically on Twitch under the handle Old Ben, and you can also and you not only stream your solo adventures, whether that's in Star Wars: The Old Republic or any other games, but of course we as a guild have formed
every Wednesday night.
Wednesday nights, Nagas with Attitude. You can be there for a good time to hang out.
It's not good gameplay, but it is. It's got a good
entertainment.
You don't watch any of our streams for like, oh, this is how to play the game well.
This is how to have fun.
Yeah, it's all about having fun.
It is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some of those highlights out online soon. But yeah, you are more than welcome to hang out with us, or even if you want to join us in game.
Yeah.
Seriously, we're looking for more people, because usually we're looking for there's certain things we want to do with a 20-man group. So far, the best we've been able to get is 6. So we have a long way to go, guys. CertainPOV.com. Let's get into some more of the nerd world. We got a new trailer popped literally the night we released the last episode.
Yep.
Because as it always happens,
we saved it, it was like, oh, look, there's a new trailer.
Yeah. And it was the Venom trailer. So we are divided in this very room about that Venom trailer. So we're going to start with you, Ben.
I love this trailer. What I don't like.
Okay.
There is one scene I don't like.
There's at least 2 you don't like.
There's 2 scenes I don't like. The first scene is the motorcycle jump.
Yes, I'm with you on that one. The motorcycle jump is dumb.
That is so like 1987 dumb.
Yeah, like Fonzie should be Venom at that point.
Right, yeah. Like apparently Venom's already jumped the shark. And then the second scene is where he actually turns into Venom. Like, and the hood like comes up over his head.
See, I like that.
That looks so Beetlejuice to me. It looks so much like the mom from Beetlejuice, where she like pulls her head up and pulls the eyes, and they're laying on her tongue. Like when you look at the screenshot of her and Venom, it's almost identical.
Okay, it's not even close to identical, but it is funny.
It's a little. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Like it's either too claymation-y, but it's not claymation-y. I don't know. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because it's early. Yeah. You know, they're not done with CGI and all that. So it may look a lot better. Apocalypse looked a lot better when we finally saw him in the movie. Yeah. Compared to what we saw in the initial shot.
The Ivan Ooze version was different.
So I'm like, based on the rest of the trailer, like if I just take those 2 scenes, I'm like, okay, like I love the idea of the plot. I have no problem at all with Venom not having anything to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah,
that's been done before in the comic books. I know everybody's like, no, you gotta have Spider-Man or it's not Venom.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. Yeah. That's not true at all. Like, if you read the comic books, this happens occasionally.
The reason why is to delve into that a bit. The thought process there is, in terms of the comics, you know, Spider-Man gets it first from, what was it, the Was it Secret Wars?
In Secret Wars. In one version, yes, but that's not the only version of the origin story.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah, I thought. Okay.
No, there's like 3 or 4 different origin stories for Venom.
Yeah.
Only one of them has Spider-Man in it.
Well, but the main one that
that everybody is familiar with, yes.
But even what's influenced the look, and the way he uses the webs was influenced by the symbiote being part of Spider-Man at one point. And
in that one story,
right? But again, but that is a look that does carry through for Venom still to this day. Even though we now have Agent Venom and all these other variations, and of course Carnage and all these other things that have come along, some of the core things we know about Venom are connected to that. That being said, I already knew Spider-Man was never going to be in this movie, so by the time I saw trailers for this, I was already past Spider-Man not being in this movie. So I'm a little surprised that people are, a little
butthurt about that.
Yeah, let's get past it, guys.
Well, I guess if you didn't know, I guess it's kind of surprising.
That's
if you hadn't been if you're a casual and hadn't really been paying attention,
and I pay attention to this stuff, I would be paying attention to this stuff even if we didn't do this podcast.
For sure. So yeah, but I mean, I can see if you're just I remember I used to read the Spider-Man comics and I love Venom, and then you're like, what the hell? Where did this come from?
Yeah,
I can understand it.
Yeah,
but I personally don't have a problem.
I do have
what it is.
A couple nitpicky things. Well, one that I think is funny more than anything else, but the first one that's a little weird is, so Eddie Brock is, a reporter, right?
Okay.
Again, this is super nitpicky, but he looks like he's dressed like a producer, while his producer looks like she's dressed like a reporter. I saw that and I was just like,
shouldn't you be dressed?
That seems a little off there. And then the other thing, it sounds like, and I actually love Tom Hardy's Bane voice, but it really sounds like he's doing an impression of Mike Tyson right now. You're not going to be able to watch it the same now.
Damn it, Addy. You just ruined this movie for me, you son of a bitch.
But doesn't it sound like it?
God damn it.
Yeah.
Damn you, Addy.
Oh, man.
From now on, every time I see
keep that to yourself. All right.
Well, it might make the movie funnier.
No,
it's not really what I was looking for from that movie. I got to be honest with you.
It's not supposed to be funny, Addy.
I don't think I was looking for comedy out of Venom.
Yeah, because it looks like it's a little bit more of a horror vibe comparatively.
It does, for sure. Yeah.
Well, moving on from us messing with
when is that coming out?
That's October, I think.
Okay, so is it that late? Okay, so we got a ways to go before.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sweating the CGI on the Venom look yet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was a great first attempt.
A hater, man.
I'm not a hater. I'm anticipating it to be even better than what we've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not expecting too much different,
no.
But I'm fine with the look. But anyway, let's move on. So let's do our roundup for TV. I did not watch Arrow this week. There's a good chance I might not even finish this season, to be perfectly honest. Because I just I
just don't care.
Well, it was on when you walked down here to start recording.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, and I don't know if I paid attention to anything in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
I started working on a rental application. I was like, I just got past Legion. I was like, I could work on this rental application while I watch Arrow. So I'm gonna skip. We're gonna skip Arrow at least for this week. Maybe I'll catch up on it for next time to update the world on Arrow.
2-episode binge.
Yes.
It's got to be wrapping up this season, right?
It's got to be close. I don't know exactly how far we are, but
it's
got to be
around
close.
the same time as S.H.I.E.L.D. ends.
Yeah, I would assume so. Then we had a new episode of Supergirl, which is definitely a little bit more behind because that took a little bit of a break while Black Lightning was on. And right now, so they're getting back in the swing of things. We had a little bit of, and this was surprisingly an interesting story, and I think this is actually one of the strengths of Supergirl is they actually do a pretty good job at some of the normal everyday stories that go on with their characters. And because of the charm of of multiple characters, not just Supergirl, but the family dynamic that they do have on that show does really work. They had Martian Manhunter's dad is a character in this story, and who's played by actually the guy who voiced Martian Manhunter on the Justice League series. Yeah, which
Did
is
you
like,
not know that?
No, I did not know that.
I know I told you that.
I know
before.
he's told you that.
No.
I know he has told you
No.
that. You do this all the time.
I
Like,
know.
we tell you things and you just ignore us.
You forget
Lie.
it, and then you find out. Then you come to us like, oh my God, I just discovered America.
Did you know that Arthas is the Lich King?
I mean, I'm not gonna say no. I'm just gonna say sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes.
That's for sure.
Sometimes.
But Martian's Manhunter's dad, who obviously these are characters who have telepathic and telekinetic abilities, has Alzheimer's basically. So it surprisingly works. I did not expect that. Like when they introduced that story last episode, I was like, okay. It actually.
Would you say it's a forgettable episode?
Hey, it actually does work though, and there's some pretty good compelling character moments. They finally got back to the villain and developing her a little bit more. She has sort of a split personality going on, so they're working on that. So it's getting into some interesting territory because I was just about at the point where I was going to be like, you know what? I'll wait till it's on Netflix, but I might stick with this show. So we've got The Flash. We got a new episode of The Flash.
Yep.
And we're carrying over from Ralph Dibny's death. And
I still can't believe they killed him. I'm still kind of surprised by that.
I'm too. I actually think it's gone in a slightly interesting direction with that. Now that we have the Thinker starting to make some mistakes and not being able to anticipate everything quite as well as he has been. And also his wife starting to lose faith in him.
Clearly going to betray him.
Yeah, and I think we always kind of knew that was going to happen.
Because you can't trust women.
Moving on. We also have the Flash also like not being able to. He's not as effective right now because he didn't take the time to grieve. So now we're continuing this trend of leadership lessons with.
Here's the thing about the DC universe.
Sure.
It either has to have Damien Dark in it or Captain Cold.
Yes.
Those two guys.
They're so campy.
Are so amazing.
I'll add a couple other people to that. Constantine.
Yeah.
I'll add to that.
Yeah.
And I actually like Mick still does a lot for me.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah.
he
You got to
really-
have one of those four guys
Yeah.
in any given episode at any given time in order for me to keep watching.
Yeah. I would have said a while ago. I would have said Cisco. It's not quite as.
Cisco and Wells together are fantastic.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's true. Harrison Wells has always been a fun character for the Flash.
Yeah.
Especially. So yeah. All right. Yeah, they've got a couple.
Because it was great. It
ways.
was great to have him on this episode. Like just his stupid, cheesy delivery and the way he talks is so over the top and dumb.
Yeah,
but I
like
love
a 20s
it.
mobster.
Yeah, but I eat it up every time. I find myself talking to my kids that way. After I watch it and stuff, it's just ridiculous. Now listen, Flash. You've got to mourn. The way he just like holds the last consonant of the words is so funny. It's so over the top. I love it. I am eating that up.
Yeah.
I hope they bring Damien Dark in for the next episode.
Yeah. Oh man. So we had a decent episode of The Flash.
Yeah, and it was really only decent because Captain Cold was in there.
Yes.
The rest
absolutely.
of it was really I don't care.
Yeah,
at this point.
I'm kind of beyond it. I think I've said this to you before, but I am definitely going to be waiting for Netflix after these seasons wrap up for sure.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to wait to Netflix each of these seasons from here on out.
Yeah, so you can just get through it.
The tough thing about it though is it does matter. I feel like it does matter that you watch these episodes in the order that they air, even if it's on different, like from show to show.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that does make it difficult.
Crossovers.
Yeah, because like I feel like I'm gonna have to put together a guide for myself of like, okay, this is the airing order. Because
guarantee you, if you spend 12 seconds on Google, somebody will have done this for you.
Probably a watch order for it. It's because it just like even outside of the crossover events, every now and then there's just enough. Like I know something is actually gonna from episode descriptions, there is gonna be a little bit of a crossover from a character from Arrow over into Flash. I believe this week. So like that, and it is kind of affected by.
Well, we had Mockingbird, but it was The alt.
Oh,
Earth.
you're talking about Black Siren. Yeah. No, I think Diggle's actually going to be over on Flash.
Hooray.
For at least an episode.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's not coming over permanently. It's because of...
Doesn't matter. I
yeah.
don't care. I don't care.
I like Diggle at times.
I like all of them at times. I'm ready for this season to be over. I'm over this Flash season. Wrap it up with the Thinker already. He's outfought them. He was so far ahead of them. This should be over.
Well, that's where season length hurts a lot of these network shows.
Yes.
If they had done it the way the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. worked, where they had the mini arcs within a season. 2
arcs per season is brilliant.
Even though there was though there was a big season-long arc still, but concentrating...
Do you think if they did that all the time, though, we would be like, oh, this is going to tie back? I see how this is all going to work together?
I think it would be fine because it's still more focused. You still
get better storytelling.
Yeah, because the thing is, now with the way this kind of thing is focused, what happened on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last season would have had over the course of 3 seasons. And then that ends up getting stretched out so much more. Because you still are going to have tiebacks and callbacks to earlier seasons. That's what's nice about these cinematic universes. Yeah. And
that's the only nice thing about this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the callbacks.
Right, exactly.
And even that's getting tiring.
Yeah. So speaking of, let's talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
So tiring.
I feel bad because this is one of the shows that I tend to like a whole lot more, but I'm ready for it to wrap up and kind of hope it doesn't get renewed at this point. So,
no, definitely. Well, all they're doing now is just how many references can we pull out between now and the end?
Well, we got a nod to Infinity War, hey, there's something happening in New York.
Yeah, I don't watch the TV.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't watch news. I get too angry.
It's too bummer. It's a bummer, man. It's a bummer.
I thought I was like, well, I guess
if that's your nod to Infinity War, it's a pretty shitty nod.
That was very disappointing, especially when this show was able to do the Winter Soldier thing that it did. But again, that was in the first season. That was also something that handicapped it too. So
it's also when the whole universe was connected, when it was all connected, and it's not anymore.
It is not.
It is
unlike
not.
What I thought last week.
It is bullshit.
Yep. So, fortunately, we do have 2 very good shows going on right now. One of them being Legion. We had a great episode of Legion where we thought we were exploring the maze of Sid's mind, but it was actually sort of a slightly different circumstance where they were going through and kind of establishing what connects and what motivates David and Sid.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting way that they revealed that. And it was even funny because I started to get frustrated with the way they were a little repetitive with some of that story. And then, yes, they opened it up with each repetition. But it was funny that I felt frustrated because at the moment I started feeling frustrated, David was frustrated.
Feeling frustrated.
And I thought that was absolutely amazing that they were
amazing storytelling.
Yeah, that they are able to craft this series
manipulate your emotions that well to timing the episode out of average viewers are going to be pissed right about now.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to drive the average guy nuts.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm blown away by this series and just the craft of it. I didn't love this episode, to be perfectly honest.
It's not my favorite episode because I am much more invested in the search for Farouk's body. So this was a little bit. It felt, definitely slowed it down in terms of progress of plot. But this is such a great character episode.
The craft of this episode was genius.
Yes.
I didn't love it, but from looking at it from a technical standpoint, this episode is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to play with a loop story where you're seeing the same things over and over and over again and frustrating the audience at the same time frustrating your protagonist.
Yeah.
Is genius.
I will say though, the one major criticism I have for this episode, and it really should be a minor criticism because this is only because I have paid as much attention as I did, especially with the first season. The big reveal, sort of a big reveal in this episode is Sid's past and a particular thing that she does with body switching with her mom and having.
But we knew about that.
Exactly. So, but that reveal plays if you did not remember that statement.
Oh. I definitely remembered that statement. I knew it was going to come.
Right, and I knew that was going to come.
And it was going to be her mom.
Well, I knew, but I was expecting that all episode. Well, once I realized we kept on
doing a loop.
Yeah,
you were expecting having that story told. They really only told that story once.
Yes, but eventually I was expecting they were getting closer to that story. I already kind of felt that was eventually going to come, and that was the moment that David needed to see.
Yeah, that
Sid kept on pointing to him, trying to guide him to, sort of.
And he kept looking everywhere else but that moment.
Exactly. So,
but that's I mean that was such a critical moment in last season too, of her telling that story of what happened.
Right.
To her.
So knowing again such a minor.
You gotta I mean, this is a show that demands your attention.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you can't casually watch this show.
Yeah. But I feel like that was for someone who may not have remembered that detail.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
No, because it's such an important point for Sid.
Yeah.
And it is such and the fact that David was looking at every other trying to just brush over that of I don't want to deal with that. That's uncomfortable to me. He wants to look oh, you're in love, or you want to be touched, or you want to be held. He's looking for all these other important positive moments
as
in her life,
opposed to looking to the sinners who are the fighters,
which is what her point is at the end. Her monologue at the end is no, it was that moment that has prepared me for this.
Right.
That darkness is what prepares us to move forward and fight. So I thought I think it's still brilliant. I don't think you could have told that you would have had to give her another really dark moment.
Oh yeah, you think so?
To be able for her to have to be able to tell that point.
I feel like they didn't necessarily. Well, I think it's such a nitpick that I'm making. Yeah, because I don't think it's something that they needed to avoid. It's just it didn't feel like a surprise to me, and it was. I
don't think it was supposed to be.
It definitely the way they paced it and played it out, and the way David when he sees it. It plays as a surprise.
Well, okay,
to the audience.
I guess there's a way you. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it as he's surprised by it because. Again, he was trying to pretend he's ignoring.
So I think on that level, it does work for both the people who are watching it carefully and the people who may not have been careful enough to remember that moment.
Right.
And I guess it's just in that perspective I was over
to a certain point of view.
Looking too close, if anything.
You were better at figuring it out than David was.
Apparently.
Would be a better boyfriend for Sid than he is.
So let's move on to Westworld. I loved this episode.
Did you?
Yes.
What did you love about this episode?
I was so glad to finally get sort of them going back to William has been one of my favorite characters in the series. Mm-hmm. So getting a chance to see
his rise into Delos.
And get a little bit more of backstory with Delos, going to the beginning and seeing sort of how he has basically in a way changed Dolores and kind of at least planted these seeds. Yeah, I thought was absolutely fascinating, and seeing how that translates into the world, his game with Robert and how Robert is existing.
Still fucking with him.
I loved it.
It's the best.
I love seeing what's his name? Is it Giancarlo? I forget the name of the actor, but from Breaking Bad.
Yes.
I was so excited. I was so happy to see him.
Yes.
In that moment, even though
Carlos Espinosa.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember the actor's name, but he's so good.
He's an amazing actor.
Yeah, and I mean he was the big bad from Breaking Bad. You know. So Gus from Breaking Bad. Yep. So absolutely amazing actor.
I'm bummed that we're not going to see more of him.
Yeah, I felt the same way, but he did a great job.
Dolores is resurrecting everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
She may resurrect him.
But I was super. I did not expect that the shots we saw of Dolores in the real world were backstory. So
I was expecting it to be future.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that she had escaped the park or whatever.
And that Bernard wasn't Bernard, it was actually Arnold.
Yeah.
Was also really cool, a really interesting perspective to see, and going further back into the history.
Here's the thing, I thought that the real Arnold looked different than Bernard.
That's what I thought too, because there's that picture where you see, and he's Arnold isn't.
But then
Bernard
it's folded,
right?
And
I'm thinking that person is someone totally different.
I think so too. I think it is, yeah. But when you go back I got to go back and watch the final episode because when Arnold dies, and sacrifices himself and has Dolores kill him in Sanctuary.
Yeah.
I thought he was a different actor. I didn't think it was the same looking guy as Bernard.
It's Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
Playing.
That was the only thing. Like
interesting.
a friend of mine texted me. Rick messaged me, and there's another thing that he noticed was that when they're in the past and they're in Bernard's future home and stuff like that, when you look at like the box and the squares and the design of everything, and you listen to the music, it's very much Blade Runner. Like the set design and everything looks very much like Blade Runner, and the music sounds very much like Vangelis music as well.
Oh,
like
really?
It's real big, heavy nod to Blade Runner in those scenes. It's really like at first I was like, this is familiar, but I was playing in my mind like, wait, is that Bernard or is that Arnold? And I wasn't. And then he was like, dude, this is just like like Blade Runner, and I was like, oh my God, you're right! Like, like the level of detail and the nods to so much science fiction that's going on in this. Again, this is another masterclass of storytelling in science fiction. It's amazing.
Jonathan Nolan is incredible. He may not have done my favorite work on Batman, but but I look at that and I wish he had gotten a series to do what he wanted to do with that story.
He did, and it was called Person of Interest.
That's fair. That is very fair. But man, Person of Interest was amazing. This is incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Going from a plot perspective instead of a thematic perspective, what do you think Delos is doing? What is this? So we know market research is a big part of it.
Clearly, like this is.
Do you think that's it? It feels like there's more. Like there's a weapon they've talked about.
Yeah.
They've also talked about there's a future and and a match has been lit and there's something that they've all started that they'll.
It's going to kill everybody.
Yeah, I think there's the potential for, especially since the Westworld is particularly for the rich. That maybe it's more of sort of like people seeking immortality through AI is a possibility with this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because you
Skynet.
have William talking. You have Skynet. This is a lead into Terminator.
Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, and you have William talking about just like blowing the whole island up, basically. Like,
right.
I'm just gonna burn this whole place down. I don't know. Like obviously, like they obviously came out basically and said like what we're doing here is just like getting right to the core of what people want, and using it for market research for advertising.
Yeah.
And getting
Hello,
people.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because everybody's defenses are down because they don't have to pretend that they're being nice to people. They can just shoot them without any consequences. Which is a really, really interesting idea. I wonder, like, I'd be curious to hear from like a real advertising person and a psychiatrist of like whether or not that would actually be effective.
Well, how does that translate into data?
How does that translate into data, and how do you use that data then to do more effective advertising?
Right.
And what effect does that have on the real world?
That's why I don't see that as the end game. I still feel like there's more to that.
Where does that lead? Like, where does that lead? Like, what slippery slope do you go down? Like, once you know, like, okay, well, like, this is the primal instinct of what people really want. Yeah. And you start giving that to them. You start advertising that to them.
Yeah.
Like, and we, to be perfectly honest, like, we've kind of seen that with Trump. Yeah. Right? Like, that was Trump's appeal of, like, he's not a politician. He's just spitting shit out of his mouth as he goes, saying whatever's on his mind, and some people view that as like, well, he's speaking from the heart, and he's speaking the truth, and he's not, like, it's not being filtered through a politician's mind.
Right.
Okay, but you also get a lot of dumb shit coming out of this guy's mouth. Like, is that what we want? And like, where does that ultimately lead? Does that lead to peace between North and South Korea, or does that lead to World War III,
right?
Or the White House Correspondents' Dinner being just a complete mess and controversial? Like, where does all this go? Like, and that I'm curious to see if they go that route, or if they go like, oh no, like that just led us to like, oh, and we could do more technology and create soldiers.
Yeah.
And basically go like a Skynet route of like automated war and stuff.
My thought, and so taking it from plot to theme, I keep on looking at trying to remind myself of some of the progression that they went on with Person of Interest, especially when the machine starts to have sentience, and you even have that moment with Ben Linus. I know he's someone else, but he's always going to be Ben. Michael Emerson's always going to be Ben Linus,
no matter what character he plays, because he plays the same character.
Right. But when he they have that father-son type of relationship. Yeah. Mainly because in the opening credits we have that image of a mother and child, and I feel like a lot of creation mythos and sort of relationship between God and creation is at the center of these last season 1 and some of the things that we're exploring now, and sort of the ideas of morality and sentience and the free will.
Have you noticed that now that Dolores has free will, she's more robotic than ever?
Yes. Because she's still guided by some degree of her programming. And the idea of programming and fate, I think, are very interesting ideas at play in this series. Yeah. Because at a certain, even William, when he comes across the I forget the name of the bandit, but he tells him, you're programmed to do this, and this is what your story is, but this thing has gone differently. So now
your story's over. Now
we're going into new territory, and then there's real freedom and real stakes. But your programming is still gonna, affect you. In a lot of reviews that I was reading for the first episode, I saw some people troubled by how Dolores was killing like these Native American characters, and it was sort of like, I was like, well, actually, like that might make sense based on this idea of programming and what you're still fulfilling from that.
And you can even play that into like our own. As humans, our own DNA.
Right.
Like when there is trauma changes your DNA structure.
Right. And not just that, but then also the effect of your mythology.
Yeah, mythology about that is going to So you're born into a culture of hunter-gatherers who has been raped and pillaged in the past by Nordic people. Like you're going to naturally be fearful and hateful of tall, blonde, muscular monsters.
Right.
Like that's going to be something that you're afraid of, or like a lot of people are naturally afraid of have nightmares about like jaguars or big cats of prey, and that's because for generations,
or jaguars moving to London,
or just the jaguars being on TV. But the big cat fear that we all kind of like have in our DNA is thought to be like a leftover remnant memory, because memories are passed on generationally. Of being hunted and being walking through the jungles and stuff like that, and then just being attacked by a giant cat that kills you. That happened and that continues to happen. But like it's just
that just makes me want to yell out Shere Khan.
We all have a shared Shere Khan experience in our genetic capability, and I think that's also true for the AI, for the hosts. In this universe of in the past, they've been tormented by these Indians. Of course, they're going to seek out retribution against these Indians. That just makes sense.
Yeah,
because they're not sure
who's the enemy and
who's the enemy. Yeah, they're just again, they've mentioned this several times. They're just fighting for survival at this point.
And because right now, Dolores has this idea of going to this place, this destination called Glory.
Right.
That they've even mentioned that other people have different names for, but it's the same place.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a fascinating idea. But also that she's already has this idea that not everyone is worthy of going there too, even of her own people.
Right.
Which I think is going to be very fascinating.
Who she cuts loose.
Yeah.
It was an interesting exchange between her and Maeve.
Yes.
And you can see okay, well, there's clearly rifts already forming and tribes already forming.
Right.
For different groups. That and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because honestly, that is humanity's biggest problem to deal with right now is tribalism.
Yeah. This is a theme for this episode.
It really is. It really is. You can look at it as like a Jedi Sith, the tribalism of Jedi versus Sith too. of like, this is us and they are them and they are the enemy.
Yeah.
And in the end of the day, like, there's no difference between Maeve and Dolores. They both had horrific things happen to them. They both have the same they're both the same on the inside. They both had horrific things happen to them. There's no reason that they should be in opposite camps or in warring camps. Honestly, like, you could say the same thing about humanity and also the hosts. Like, humanity has had horrible things happen to it along the way of its own self-discovery and its own self-actualization in that process. So is there really any difference between humanity and the hosts? And that's that's the question I think is being answered in this series that we'll find out. And I think we're going to end up finding out that no, there really isn't any difference. That in the act of self-actualization, you become tribal and you become an enemy of the other.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm so excited for this season as it continues too.
That's so deep, man.
Yeah.
That is so deep.
So, man, it's crazy territory. And this is why we had, like, when we had a different format last year, we had, or for the first season of Westworld, we had, like, an episode for each episode.
Because it was so deep. So deep.
Oh, man. So that's gonna be interesting as we continue to explore that. Of course, we'll continue to talk some Westworld and Legion. Obviously, we already talked to you guys about how we're going to be going more Star Wars very, very soon. You can always keep up with us, though, on our website, certainpov.com, and you can check out all of our other podcasts, Another Pass with Case Aiken, Fun and Games with Matt and Jeff, and then also some of the stuff that we're doing on Twitch that we've already talked to you guys about. You can check it all out on certainpov.com. And until next time, stay scruffy, my nerf herders.